Thanks for clicking. Welcome back to a new video. Today I want to share with you my hydrating, glowy, just perfected base routine for these sort of colder months. Lately I've had some revelations about my base routine and foundations, and I really wanted to share them with you because I think you're going to find them really helpful as well. My skin is already prepped with all of my favorite products. If you want an updated skincare routine for the season, I'm not sure if you're interested in skincare or not, so be sure to let me know in the comments. To get started, I really want to talk about this sort of foundation combo that I've been doing. I just did my Danessa Myricks video that I posted last, and I learned so much about how she layers glow into the base routine. I'm usually a powder person, meaning I put all of the glow on after I have a really matte base, but I've been experimenting since then and I feel like it makes such a big difference. So to start off, I have the Haus Labs Skin Tech Foundation here. I tried this a while back. It wasn't my absolute favorite. The shade was also a little bit yellow on me, so during the Sephora sale, I was like, let me give this another chance because I'm so obsessed with their concealer. I wanted to try it again. I got the shade 15 Fair Warm, which I think their system is sort of like MAC, where it's actually opposite because this was just too cool toned on me and a little bit light. So I decided to mix it with one of my new products here. This is the Covergirl Color Correcting Serum, Moisturizer, and Primer. The redness neutralizer, so it has a greenish yellow hue to it. If you have olive skin, you're probably really familiar with foundations not matching you. So this trick is so helpful. First, I take the Haus Labs Skin Tech Foundation. I put about 1.5 pumps on my hand. And then I take the Covergirl Color Correcting Serum, which is a green tinted product. And I do a pump of this mixed in with the foundation. You can adjust how much of the green that you need depending on how much you need to correct your foundation shade. For me, this one is quite cool on me, so I want to add a lot of that green into the foundation. Now that it's mixed up, I take this and just apply my foundation how I normally would. The Covergirl primer also has a lot of moisturizing properties, so it helps to add a little bit of glow to the foundation, but even being a little bit more oily, I don't find that it adds too much glow. And what I'm left with is foundation that matches me a lot better. My face may appear cool toned, I have a lot of redness, but I'm trying to match my neck, not my face, because I want everything to look cohesive. So now I have a foundation that I don't have to return, that I can actually make work for me. So what I realized about my foundation preferences is I kind of had this like idealistic formula that I wanted to use. I'm like, oh, I really like coverage. So I was trying some more like full coverage and more matte formulas because I do have more oily skin and I want something to last. But I think my foundation list of priorities has changed a little bit, where I would rather have it look more skin-like and feel healthy and glowy, and maybe wear a little bit less time, because whenever I have like a glowy foundation on, I feel really confident if it looks skin-like and natural. I just really don't like the look of having like a lot of foundation. I feel like it just like takes over my face. But previously I may have not have minded that as much, so I'm just like, you know, trying to ask myself what I actually use on the everyday basis and enjoy using, not what I like want myself to use. So if you're looking for new foundations, which can be so hard, there's like new foundations coming out all the time, it makes it even harder. Think about formulas you've loved in the past and how you like your skin to look, and compare it to maybe that foundation you want to buy. So if you like really thin serum formulas, is that foundation you're looking at similar? Or is it like a thick matte foundation? Because the chances are you probably won't like that. Another one that is great I wanted to mention is the Maybelline Super Stay Skin Tint. This doesn't last as well on me as the Haus Labs foundation has been with this routine, but it is really nice. It has a little bit of a pearl in it, so it gives you a natural glow, and it is a super thin serum-y consistency. So if you maybe like the Elium True Skin Serum Foundation, things that are very liquidy and serum-y, you might like this one as well. And I also wanted to give a mention to one that's more gel-like, which I really love these types of foundations that are thin but have like more of this like water-based type of formula, sort of like the Kosas one. That one's a bit heavier, but this is the Chantecaille Future Skin Foundation. This is an oil-free foundation, which I love because I have more oily skin, so these like water-based ones do actually last quite a long time on me. I didn't want to love this because it is so pricey, but this, it is more on the light coverage, but it's buildable. It looks so skin-like and actually wears really well because it's so thin. I've just been noticing that about thinner foundations in general, like they just move around less on my face. when they do wear off, it just looks a little bit more natural because I'm trying to let go of the idea of like finding the perfect foundation. They're probably never going to be perfect. We all have real skin, right? So something that just wears the best because it is going to wear off eventually, you know, unless it's maybe like Estee Lauder Double Wear, which I'm not a fan of wearing on the everyday basis. But you know what I'm saying, hopefully. So since I had a little bit of a hard time with this foundation wearing well on me when I first tried it, I have just started picking up the foundation in the areas where it tends to just settle a little bit. It's not bad by any means. I think I was just being a bit of a perfectionist, which is around my smile lines in like my nose creases, just to work in the product and make sure there's just nothing extra sitting there. I also get quite sweaty on my upper lip, so I like to dab that off as well. I do still feel like with mixing those, my foundation, you can tell it's slightly cool for me, which I fix with powder later on, but honestly this is like close enough. To pair with that, I'm going to use the Haus Labs concealer. This has a little bit more yellow tones in it, which I actually think helps to bring the like yellow oliveness into my face. Another thing I've been really like thinking about with foundations is like taking my natural tones when I don't have makeup on and bringing them into the makeup that you're wearing. Of like, of course it's gonna look more natural because that's what you sort of naturally look like. Of course everyone's tones are gonna be different. Like sometimes you hear to use a really peachy concealer to cancel out darkness, but I just don't really have any peachy tones in my skin. They actually are one of like the most unflattering shades on me. So I will use a corrector with a concealer over top, but I just like to get a concealer that is similar to my skin. So along with just figuring out that I like thinner, more natural looking foundations, I've also been playing around with more of my thin gel-like formulas in my everyday makeup routine. So the KVD Modcon contour is one of my favorites. I've used this for a long time, but I was like, I feel like it's really perfect to pair with these foundations because it's a little bit more sheer. It is a liquid, so it just gives you a more natural look as compared to like a thick cream contour stick, which with like a lighter foundation, not that this foundation is like necessarily super light, it just goes well with the glowiness I want to instill into my skin. And then I just like to blend that out with my Luxie Small Contouring. I absolutely love this brush. If you want or need new brushes, I got this Luxie brush set like on Black Friday years and years ago. They had their full set for like, I believe 50% off. So I think it was like $100 for almost all their brushes, and they are still in like pristine condition to the day. So I will keep an eye out for when they have their sale and maybe post it over on my community tab. So make sure you're subscribed so you end up seeing those if you're interested in the brushes. So along the lines of having a really natural looking base, I think when you're choosing your contour and bronzer shades, it's also really important to choose things that are working well with your own undertone. Like warm tones on me just aren't super flattering, and they tend to look more makeup-y because they're not naturally really in my skin a ton. So that's why I really like that Modcon contour that has a nice neutral coolness to it, so it looks more like my natural contour would look like. Another product I have been using, this is a bit warmer and kind of like a weird application for this that I hadn't tried before. This is the Say Glowy Super Gel, but it is the Sun Glow shade, which is more of this warm bronze, but it definitely pulls a little bit more yellow versus red, which I always find in terms of bronzer is a lot more flattering on me. I'm going to take that same brush, and this is another sheer glowy product. And I just like to work that as my bronzer sort of on top of that contour, because I was like, I didn't really have a liquid bronzer. Like I have a lot of cream bronzers. They tend to look like a little bit too much on me. And I just put this on this foundation the other day and I was like, this is actually really pretty. It's also of course really hard finding bronzers that just don't look like too much on fair skin. So these sheer buildable liquid products, I've been just like, wow, I'm loving them. So now that even the foundation was a little cool to begin with, now that I'm adding some more bronzy tones, it seems to match slightly better. Moving on, you thought we were done with the creams and liquids? We're not, we're moving on. I know, me using creams and liquids, it's very different. I'm such a powder person. Still will always love powder for like super longevity, but I've been playing around with using these and setting them and seeing how they wear. So 2 blushes that I've been really enjoying. I actually have 3 here. So first is the Persona Blush Sticks. These have a bit more pigment. They're not as sheer as like the contour and bronzer products, which I like because I like quite a strong blush. So this is their Bloom shade, which is a collab with, I forget who, but I really like this one. I love the bubble one. That's a really cool purple pink as well. Also, if I want something with shimmer, this Iris&Romeo Rosy Glow Multi-Balm is so pretty. Let me go ahead and swatch these for you. This one has a bit more of like a berry glow to it, and the Persona one definitely has more of like a matte, much more pigmented finish. And then the Daniel Sandler watercolor like blushes. These are again a liquid product. They are very shimmery, but the shimmer is so fine that it just gives you like literally an angelic glow. I want some more shades of these that are a bit cooler. This one, I don't know the shade of this because it doesn't say, but these are actually very long wearing on the skin, surprisingly. They have more of this dry oil feel, but they sort of dry down to a more powdery finish. I feel like we are very glowy and I want to add some more glow after, so I'm going to go in with the Persona blush stick and do just a little bit of this the tops of my cheekbones. I'm gonna blend this in with my Trixie blush brush. See how pigmented these are? Like, you do not need a lot at all. I know everyone loves the Rare Beauty blushes. I tried like a sample, just weren't my absolute favorite. Maybe I just need to try like a better shade. Let me know if you like those, or maybe I'll do an updated full face of Rare Beauty. See if I might end up liking some more stuff. Yeah, we are fully blushed up. Going back in with my sponge. It's kind of the key here. It just picks up the extra product and makes sure it looks like it's coming from within. So we're just building upon that dimension and that glow. Moving on, I have been really loving these 3 products. These are from Westman Atelier. Depends what I'm going for, what shade I will use. These are all their highlights. First is the shade Nectar, which is a bit more pink, but these are very sheer, so it actually works just beautifully. This one just has like more of a neutrally champagne glow to it. And you've probably heard me talk about this one, which is a like clear base again, but this has like a blue shift to it. So if I'm doing like a cool toned look, I feel like that one looks a little bit better on me. This one here, it's like a purpley blue color. And then this one I will sort of layer more as a bronzer because this is the shade Brulee, which as you can tell definitely has some pigment. I've layered this as like a bronzer before and it looks really pretty. I think I'm gonna use the Nectar shade today. To apply these, I've been liking just rubbing my finger on them and then dabbing onto the face instead of putting the stick directly over the foundation. I think it just works a little bit better in the long run. And I previously didn't love these because they're like, I don't like my hair sticking to my makeup or they're not wearing well. But I've been setting them with powder and they look really like you still see the glow through the powder, which is kind of my revelation with all of these products is building glow and then using a powder. If you use enough glow, it actually still shines through. Of course, shout out to Danessa Myrix, who I learned that technique from, especially for more oily skin. If you have dry skin, you could just leave this and not set it. So now that all the glow is laid down, I'm gonna go in with a very thin powder. I think this is important that your powder is thin and sheer if you want the glow to show through. Dermablend loose powder is one of my favorites, just like a no color powder. And I'm just gonna blend out my concealer with my finger before I go in and set. I feel like I could actually do just a touch more concealer right in the dark areas. And this layer I will dab in with my fingers. And then immediately going into set with that Dermablend powder. I use quite a lot under my eyes. This concealer is so long wearing when it's set. And I go up the sides of the nose as well. I guess I'm sort of doing a little mini bake. And then we'll set the rest of the face later on. So once that is baking, I just take that same powder on a much fluffier brush. This is going to apply a light layer. And I go over and set all of those liquids and creams, even the Westman Atelier glow stick. And if you just use a light amount, it's still gonna glow through. So I went ahead and did my brows and just brushed off the bake. So hopefully you can see on camera, even though like I used a lot of powder in my more oily areas, the rest of the face looks glowy and healthy still. This is optional, but if I feel like this isn't enough, I need some more bronzer, blush, or highlight. I will go in with a little bit of powder. I'm feeling like I want just a little more blush. I'm gonna use my RMS blush in French Rose. And this is a baked formula, so it has a very smooth pearl to it. So the pigments are actually round, so they look really smooth and blurring on the skin versus like some metallic eyeshadows, which the actual like microscopic pigments are a little more like pointy. So that's why like a lot of these like pearlized baked powders, I love them so much, is because they look great on texture. They don't emphasize texture. So just bumping up that blush a little bit. I like to think of everything like that's liquid and cream that I used. You can also have that have its own setting powder, which I know is a little bit excessive. Like I said, you don't have to do this. This is like a combination of makeup I learned growing up, like from Patrick Starrr, where they use a lot of powder layering techniques to set in creams for super long wear and like high impact, but also the Janessa Myricks technique of layering creams and illuminators under and on top of foundations. So I'm going to take the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder in Ethereal Light. This is a very, very smooth powder as well. And if I want to just amp up the highlight and any other areas of the face, I want some more glow. Now that we are set down, I will just go in with this powder. If I use a bit of a lighter coverage foundation or skin tint, I may go in with a powder foundation like this Pure one. I love Lima Pure, just to amp up the coverage but still have the face look really natural. Or even the One Size Stage White powder foundation, just to lift parts of the face. Let me use a little bit of this. I'm gonna use a smaller brush just to highlight under those contour points. So I think the lighting's making this look a little bit more matte than it actually is. Also, as the course of the day goes on, the makeup and powder is going to warm up to the skin and it's going to become glowier in a more pretty way. But it's not going to break down a ton because we did still set those more problem-prone areas. But I think you can still see it on the cheek and the glow in the skin. It looks healthy. This is like more of the medium coverage version. Like I mentioned, those other foundations are a little bit more sheer. So now that the more glowy but long wearing face is done, I actually do have a new eyeshadow palette here I want to play with. I've been using the Natasha Denona palettes for my everyday. I have a review on both the Xenon and the I Need a Nude palette if you haven't seen those already. But this is from Persona Cosmetics. This is their Identity 1 palette. I had the Identity 2 palette and I loved the formula. So I really wanted to try this more neutral take. These are gorgeous. I don't feel like they're too warm or too cool. So we're gonna play around with this one. And the metallics in here, I love them. They're so smooth. The shade in the corner here, which is a very light pastel, but has like a slight beiginess to it, I think is gonna be perfect as a transition shade. The shade name is called Humble. I really love when palettes have this very light shade. For a lot of people, this would be like a highlight shade. For me though, it is a transition. Next, using that same brush, I'm gonna take this slightly warmer brown. This is called Charming. And I'm just gonna build this up into the crease. These formulas are beautiful, by the way. They blend like a dream, and the mattes are true matte formulas. And then I'm also gonna go into this Maverick shade, which is a slightly cooler tone, purpley brown, and deepen the outer V even further. This shade is so pretty. Like I said, when I looked at this, I love how it's not too cool or too warm. Sort of like has a nice mix of both. And then using this matte purple, which is called Chic, I just want to make this a little bit more purple. So just amping that up a little bit in the crease. Still trying to keep it relatively soft though. I used the shade Humble, which was that lightest beige shade, just to help blend and sort of tone down the rest of the colors a little bit. Now let's get into all of these shimmers, which are all of these here. There is so many pretty shades. I think I'm gonna have to start with the cool tones. This is Seductive, which is like a mauve-y taupe color, and this is gonna be for the outer half of the lid. Like I mentioned, the metallics in these, if you love a smooth metallic like I do, especially for everyday, they are gorgeous. The shade, I love this. Gives you that very like wet look eye too. And then I'm gonna have to use this very light shimmer. Some of my favorite eyeshadow shades ever are just light shimmers. Oh my gosh. Look at that pigment. It's a gorgeous undertone. It's not super cool toned. It's like a true pearly, almost has like a champagne hue. And then I think we could use even a little bit of this dark purple shimmer down here on the outer corner. The tones of these purples are perfection. They're very like muted, especially paired with the other neutrals in this palette. So it's super wearable. I think I'm gonna try to use this green on the lower lash line. The shimmers are just so pretty. I want to use them all. I think I'm going to dampen my brush a little bit. This green hue is so pretty as well. I feel like not a lot of people talk about these from the brand, like they're known for the blush and bronzer sticks, but like the eyeshadow palettes are amazing as well. I hope they make some more of them. But let's do a little bit of a shadow liner. Of course, I always do that. I'm gonna use this dark brown chocolate shade called Fearless. I just love shadow wings. They're really soft and pretty, and you can always like clean up if you make a mistake. I like to stamp the shape on. Sometimes I'll use a shadow, sometimes I'll just use the brush. And I just like to soften that. I'm actually gonna grab a little bit of that green shade. I want to tie it into the top lid. Oh my gosh, these shimmers are insanely pretty. Like, obsessed. These shimmers are so pretty, and even though there's so many different tones in this palette, they still somehow all work well together. I'll have to use like the warmer tones on another video, and then just doing the same over there, which is drawing that line and then blending it out with that green shimmer. And this eye is so shimmery, I feel like why not go full shimmer. And also take this light pearly shade and pop that on the brow bone and inner corner. Now let's do some mascara. I want to update you on the Covergirl Cleantopia mascara. I really liked this at first. I continued using it. It just does flake a little bit by the end of the day. It's more of a voluminizing effect. So I wouldn't say it beats my Maybelline Sky High. It does have like a much softer, like fuller effect versus the Sky High is like very lengthening. I had hope for it, but it unfortunately does not wear the best on me. So I'm using the Maybelline Sky High, obviously. I also need to set the brow, so I'm gonna use my Kosas Airbrow, just the clear gel. Now for the lips, I'm going to use the NYX Line Loud lip liner. These are really creamy. They're really long lasting. I described these before as like a liquid lipstick and a lip pencil. They're really interesting. This is the shade, which is like a really nice cool shade, Fierce Flirt. And then I have a lot of lipstick options. First, I have the Charlotte Tilbury Very Victoria. I found this in my drawer today and literally forgot I had it. This shade is like a slightly more like neutral cool version of Pillow Talk, which pulls quite warm on me, so if it does, this might be a good option. I also have this pure lipstick. This one is called Trailblazer, which looks really similar but has slightly more pinky tones in it versus Very Victoria is still like a little bit peachy on me. And I also have this Hint Beauty lipstick, which is the shade Pink Whisper. This is the most creamy and also has the most pink in it. I think I'm gonna use this one because the eyes are still quite neutral. We can take a little more color. These are so creamy, and look at the top of this. It has a little mirror and a lip balm, so if you're like reapplying, it's super tiny, but it'll do the job. And I'm thinking let's do a gloss too. I've been really liking this ColourPop So Glassy formula. This one is the shade Poppy, which is a really pretty cool tone pink. So this is the full look. I love how it turned out, love the eyeshadow, and I really hope you found all of my tips for a hydrating, glowy base routine that's still really long lasting, helpful, and maybe inspires you to play around with some stuff you have in your collection and find what really works for your skin type. But thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in my next video. There'll be two on the screen here. Pick one of those and we'll keep hanging out. See you there. Bye.